So hi, Tracie. Thank you so much for joining me today for We'll Drink for Travel TV. Hi, everyone. I'm here with Tracie Franklin. I'm so excited to talk to her, Spirited Tracie on Instagram. I'm so happy you were able to join me today.
It's absolutely my pleasure. Thank you so much for reaching out and finding me.
Of course. I want to jump right in. Tell us who you are, your background, how you came to this place in your life.
Absolutely. So that's a very long, complicated story, but sum everything up. I am an Air Force brat. My father was military and traveled around the world and kind of brought a lot of that culture and adventure and curiosity into the household, which then led me to seek out flavor and taste and just these experiences through food, because he talked so much about what he would do when he was out on the road. So that was really instilled in me as a child, which then I was really excited to be able to get the opportunity to travel the world singing and dancing as a Broadway performer and doing off-Broadway shows. And so that was really what led me out into the world. But because I couldn't drink a lot, because for me, my voice is affected by alcohol, I basically was on a search to find the one thing that I could have that I enjoyed, that, would keep me happy. And that ended up being whiskey. I fell in love with peated whiskey on the road, and I would sit and sip, one whiskey a night, and it'd keep me very happy. And people would get away from me because it smelled like tar and seaweed and, all those beautiful peated whiskey notes. And so that really led me into the whiskey world. I dove in head first once I got to New York and was bartending in between auditioning and really got to know the category. Luckily, people in the whiskey world are very generous with their knowledge and also with their opportunities. And I was able to step into the ambassadorship side and also created a marketing company for brands called Worski. It was also a blog and we got a Twitter or something. It's on there somewhere, but haven't been able to do that. But basically the idea in that time was to increase diversity in the world of whiskey, to allow educational opportunities to be more fun, and to allow brands to talk to guests and to talk to basically the population in a different way. And at that time, it was, women in whiskey wasn't quite as popular as it is now. It probably was the perfect business plan, but my partner and I were both struggling actors, and we moved out of New York, and so that kind of fell apart. But I did get noticed from that organization, and that's really where the brand ambassador role sort of picked up. Worked for Glenfiddich, recently left about 6 months ago, I guess. I left my national ambassador role for Glenfiddich Scotch to join the Nearest and Jack advancement initiative, which is basically focused on what I was trying to do, which is increase diversity in the world of whiskey, but in a lot of ways, but actually representation in the industry. So they're working with a business incubation program. They are opening a school of distillation that's accredited here in the United States. And I am the third prong, which is the leadership acceleration program. So taking leaders of color and basically creating a pipeline to ensure that they're getting the experience and the education they need to step into roles within the industry. So I'm really excited. I was the first person selected for this, and that's daunting.
Amazing. It's amazing.
It's daunting, it's humbling, and it's also incredibly exciting. So I'm studying to become a head distiller, and I've loved whiskey and distillation and spirit formation and flavors since I started on this path. So I'm incredibly excited to really bring all those things together.
Wow.
Did I get enough?
Yeah,
That's quite a story.
Yeah, I'm like, there's so much there, and that so much has led you to this moment. That's amazing. So what does it mean to be a master distiller? What's your end goal? Do you aim to one day own your own whiskey, or work at Nearest, or
right, because it's huge, right? And what's interesting is master distiller itself, the title is flexible. There are all different types of head distillers and master distillers throughout the industry. And so what I'm trying to do is really get a grasp of this incredible thing that is distillation, and what that means in production, and what that means in quality control and for safety. And really, I'm just trying to understand the small scale craft distilleries, the large scale, big conglomerate sort of style, whatever it may be. I want to understand it, both ends, and to be trained in a way that I can step into any distillery and hopefully become an asset, while I would not necessarily know how to run their equipment by any means, or step in and become all of a sudden great, but to become an asset, to be able to be insightful in a way that I can improve systems or improve flavors or quality control. That is my goal. My goal is to understand this process so well inside and out that I can just be that asset, that I can also take that knowledge and distill it down in ways that so consumers and whiskey enthusiasts can also understand. That is my big passion, is education. And so me getting all of this education is really just fodder for creating something where I'm able to turn that back around and give it back.
I love that, because I actually follow you on Instagram, so I know like you do a lot of like educational things on your stories, a lot of things I didn't even know. So that's great for the average consumer, learning about the whiskey industry. I see you have your Jack Daniels and Uncle Nearest back there.
Right.
Your bottle here, of course. So what does a typical day look like for you? Like,
oh, it's so varied. Oh my gosh. So the problem is COVID, guys. Wear your mask.
Please wear your mask.
Get your vaccine if you are eligible. Just do the simple, wash your hands. So COVID has really put my schedule back months, and that it's really, really frustrating. So what's happened so what I'm basically doing is studying. I am studying all sorts of things, which is really wonderful. So I actually today was studying sake. So I was studying koji, which is it's a mold that basically works as the enzymes to break down the starches in rice. So in barley, we do that by germinating our barley, which then creates its own enzymes and breaks itself down from the inside out. This is a totally different process, and I'm very curious to find out how koji would possibly be used within the whiskey industry. Would it be used? What are the actual different processes that are happening? So this is what I do with my day. I find a project, I give it to myself, I study it, but I'm also now part of the Institute of Brewing and Distilling's they have a diploma program. So I'm also studying for my diploma in distilling. It's going to take about 1.5 years. So it's a rough one.
Yeah.
But also incredibly exciting, because I'm a huge nerd and I love to study all the nitty-gritty things. And this is what I'm being able to do. So I study. I hope to spread the word about diversity in the industry, about the Nearest and Jack initiative, by doing podcasts or talks, whatever it is, whatever I can do. And what else do I do with my days? I don't know. I taste whiskey. I try to, I'm really working on my palate. And I share knowledge on my Instagram.
And you do a great job at, from what I see, the sharing of knowledge. So thank you for doing that.
My pleasure.
So what makes a good whiskey? Like when you say you want to enhance your palate, like what makes a good tasting whiskey?
Well, that's completely subjective, which is what's even better about it, is that everybody has their own palate. And so the variety of flavor within the category of whiskey, which the category of whiskey is huge, because whiskey itself is just a distilled spirit made from grain, typically aged in oak, right? That's huge. So think of all the grains you could possibly use, all the types of oak you could possibly use, how you distill it, the different types of stills. Like there's such a world of flavor, of choices to be made to create all of these unique flavors. And when you're working on your palate, it's not in order to be able to say, well, this whiskey is better than this whiskey. It's really to be able to understand by flavor how whiskeys were processed, how they were aged and matured, any raw materials that may have been used, to be able to taste that within the whiskey, so that you can then tell someone, oh, hey, here's where you're going wrong in the process, or here's where you're doing great. And if you want to improve this or this or this, you're talking about that. That's really what I'm trying to really hone in on my tasting skills, to find all of those different molecules and compounds that are in whiskey that may signify specific things. Mm-hmm. So very different than just, I want to have a good whiskey. I want to understand the whiskey chemically, and that's going to take a lot of time.
Yeah. Sounds very complicated. A lot of chemistry.
There is a lot of chemistry. So if anybody wants to trade chemistry lessons for whiskey, I am trying my best to teach myself organic chemistry.
Oh my gosh, daunting. So what's the difference in like American whiskey versus like Scottish whiskey or like Irish whiskey?
Absolutely. So that's where I always start with, is that when I tell people the category of whiskey is actually huge, and they're like, oh yeah, I didn't think about that. So really what you're talking about is, once you get past whiskey, you go to basically country. So different countries have different regulations for whiskey. So whiskey in Scotland has to be 3 years old. Doesn't matter what kind it is, it has to be 3 years old. In the United States, there actually is no age statement requirements unless it's a straight whiskey. Within those countries, then what grains are they using? What are their raw materials? So in Scotland, we know that they use all the things we do. They do corn, they do wheat, they do barley, they do, right? But they are known for these single malts, and single malt describes itself. It's made in a single distillery from 100% malted barley, single malt. So that barley flavor is going to be very different from what we typically think of as American whiskey, even though American whiskey is actually a very broad category itself.
Yeah.
But we always think of bourbon.
Right.
So if I'm just comparing single malt Scotch to bourbon, the different then we're looking at those raw materials. So in barley, in Scotland, we're using barley, and here in America, we're using corn. Mm-hmm. So 51% corn at least. They are going to have a little bit of barley just for those enzymes to create sugars. And then you'll have rye as that sort of spice component. So in the fact that we have a mash bill, that it's actually flexible, that imparts completely different flavors, that is going to be the first part that I look at. And then you can just dive deeper from there, right? That's just the beginning. That's not talking about the stills, the barrels, it's
just so much. Like, it's just
there is
so much.
That's why I love it.
Yeah, you're very like excited. Like, I can see your enthusiasm for it. So that's amazing. So how do you unwind after a long day of all this studying and taste testing?
Well, I'm really lucky that I have an incredibly supportive husband. So I try to make sure to spend time with him, because he is just one of those guys that'll just occupy himself, until he's just like, I miss you. And so I'm becoming more mindful about spending quality time for him. That is his love language. And I drink champagne. That is my other thing. It's whiskey and champagne. That is me. It's what I love. And tea. I love yoga. So we're actually taking a yoga certification currently. So reading the Bhagavad Gita, really trying to understand, how I'm going to set up my next training, whatever it may be, studying anatomy all the time. And reading. So I love to read. I actually am just getting ready to read the second book, The Parable of the Tenants, Octavia Butler. I'm currently reading that, and The Yellow House, and Caste. I read too many things at the same time.
You sound very busy.
I stay busy.
Same 24 hours here.
I am a type A person. And I am working on understanding that staying productive and busy that doesn't equate to value. That doesn't make me more valuable, because that is really in my life. Being raised the way I was, military family, very, very high expectations. I'm one of those people that I feel like I have to stay busy or else I'm not productive. I'm not valuable. I'm not moving forward in my life. But it's those moments of rest where you're really able to fill your spirit, and I need to fill this vessel every now and then.
Yeah, I feel
so learning that.
So you spoke about how your father was in the military. You were a military brat. What are some of the best places you've or your favorite vacation destinations?
Yeah, so it wouldn't even actually be from that necessarily. We lived in Guam, so that was incredible. But when I was touring as a singer, I got to see a third of the countries of the world. So I actually did the show in 8 languages, which is awesome. Yeah. I learned them just what I had to say and sing. It's not like I speak these languages, guys. Like, if I could speak them, it would be incredible. But I was really good at sort of echoing the script and the songs. So my favorite place was Thailand. I was able to see Thailand in a very unique way, because I was basically given 2 co-hosts for this show, and they just really embraced me in ways like I just became family. So I was able to experience Thailand as a tourist, but also as a local in ways that most people don't. And it changed my life. It's what introduced me to meditation and into Buddhism. And then I went to Japan after that during the cherry blossoms. So my gosh, I was just,
wow.
Yeah. So I live here in Washington, D.C., and our cherry blossoms are lovely, but my goodness, go to Japan and see them everywhere you go is really an incredible, it's just an incredible experience. And I feel very honored.
I live in Baltimore, but I went to school in DC. I work in DC, so I'm very familiar with the cherry blossom craze. So I can't even imagine how beautiful that would be in Japan.
Yeah, because you've also got these ancient temples right there surrounded. You're just like, is this real life? Like I am, but and again, if you know what the cherry blossoms are meant to signify, it is the impermanence of life. So it's one of those things that like, I am dying to get cherry blossom tattooed because it is that constant reminder to be present, the constant reminder that nothing is promised, that everything will change, everything will. So it's that acceptance, that give and take. And for me, with the way that this year has gone, the opportunities that have come, but also the heartbreak that I've experienced, I want that reminder that it's all going to change. So not to grasp, just be present.
Oh my gosh, I love that. And I didn't know that about cherry blossoms, so I learned something new today.
Yes.
What's your favorite cocktail? This is
so interesting, right? Because I love a Manhattan. I really do, but it's, you know, proper proportions with a good pairing. But I get these weird cravings for a dry martini, but not like super dry. Like I want vermouth in it. I just don't want an excessive amount. But I love a gin martini, and it just is refreshing in a way that nothing else is. So I crave one of those every now and then. But my whiskey cocktail go-to is usually a Manhattan. I'm really simple.
I'm simple too. I actually have an old fashioned that I made with Uncle Dave.
Oh, nice.
Well,
I'm sorry, I have hot tea.
Oh, well, you know, I had a long day.
I have 2 more interviews, so that's why I was like, I can't drink through all of these.
So what has it been like for you as a Black woman in the spirits industry? Has it been like a welcoming experience, or
so I think I've been really lucky that I was raised in a family and in an environment where I was taught to be the exception, taught to be the only one, taught that how to mold and meld to fit into situations. So while I am now looking at that as a bit of a hindrance in my life, that ability to morph, which has become it's no longer an ability, it's just second nature. So I'm working on standing in my shoes, standing tall with those ancestors, and not allowing myself to give chunks to other people, right? Because I was always in the room. I was always allowed because I knew what they wanted. I knew what was acceptable. I knew how far I could take things, how far I couldn't. I didn't rock the boat. I knew how to play the politics. And that's what we have to do. Like, that's what we're taught. This is how you get along. Like, this is how you play the game. That's what I was taught, and that is what I did well. I think that I know that there are moments that I allowed harm to occur to myself, to other people around me, in allowing it to be in the room. And I'm now at a place where I'm able to speak up. I don't care what the consequences are. I think I've earned people's respect in the fact that I'm willing to do what it takes now to stand up for people, to create space, and to ensure that 5 years from now, this industry looks more diverse than it does now. We really, really need more points of view, period. We need more palettes. And so as a woman in this industry, that's rare. As a woman of color, even more rare. But I had a lot of people who were rooting for me and opened those doors, and I stepped through. And now I'm able to open doors for other people, and hopefully those people can come in feeling like bringing their full selves.
I love that. And I want to ask you, because I have a similar background, like I grew up in a white environment.
Yeah.
And so you morph into, an acceptable version of yourself, as you said. Do you feel like this awakening has come like within the last year for you?
Oh yeah, no, this is absolutely, while it was something that was I'd already recognized, I didn't feel like the freedom was there to do it, right? I still felt like I was dancing. It was a fine line of what I could and couldn't do. I was an ambassador for a single malt Scotch, the only woman of color that had ever held a national ambassador role for a Scotch company in the United States. So that it was this fine line of making sure that I was still luxury, that I was, representing this tradition, this heritage, and and understand, like, this absolutely could have been things that I'm imbuing on myself, that I think this is what it requires. So this is not something where I'm saying, oh, you did this to me. No, I was going along with this. Like, but it was a choice that I was consciously making to be able to be visible. Mm-hmm. I wanted to ensure other people saw that there is a Black woman in this role because you belong here too. Mm-hmm. So whatever that took, whatever that dance was, felt like it was, I felt like that was totally fine to do. But then once we opened this door to what it really means to accept that you're saying to me as a company that you want diversity, that you want to accept people as they are, that you want their opinions, you want their voices heard, then I had to renegotiate who I was in that room and start to challenge that. You're saying this, but are you actually walking the walk? So I think that's why a lot of us are taking this journey. Those of us who've been in, corporate world, USA, and I locked my hair, like those of us, we were straightening our hair, whatever we needed to do to look professional. We're now saying, oh, I as a human being am professional. Mm-hmm. I shouldn't have to cow to you and what your expectations seem to be. Instead, I'm going to bring you Tracie Franklin, 100% professional and owning all of my ancestry, all that I am. And we're going to see what that looks like. And we're going to see how you adjust, because you need to adjust, not me. So I'm really excited and hopeful that there are more women and men. But I just know this so personally, how deep this goes for women of color, how much we hurt ourselves to be in those rooms, how much we diminish our light to be in those rooms. And thank you. I'm so grateful I have Fawn as a mentor. I am refusing to do that because she has given me that permission. And it's just like, what are you thinking? Yeah. Why are you not walking in like you own everything?
Yeah.
So
I love that. And I wholeheartedly agree with everything you have said. And I think, it's really like the sentiment, as you said, of the American Black woman. Like, this is who we are, and we are stepping into our own unapologetically.
Yes.
So I love that. Thank you for sharing that. What advice would you give someone who wants to get into this industry, maybe apply for the Nearest Jack initiative? Do you have any advice for them?
Yes. So the Nearest Jack initiative, I believe the website is up. I know that they are going quite slow because we are still laying out the actual program. So there are positions that will be in marketing, managerial roles. So mine would be more managerial, but focused on distillation. So they're really working on the program before they open up those floodgates, because it's a pretty incredible program. But what I would recommend is, in the meantime, to get all of the education that you can, to make sure you do your research on your programs to ensure that they are giving you a sound education as well. Look up the WSET, different wine and spirits organizations. And if you know someone in the industry, reach out to them. Ask them what they would recommend, any books that they would recommend. Follow me on Instagram. I give that information. So I try to share that knowledge, and also reach out to me. I am totally comfortable with you reaching out, asking questions about how to get in this industry, about things that maybe resources within your area, looking at small craft distilleries and asking if they have time, to sit with you, or if you can, well, not with COVID, but once this stuff's taken care of, maybe popping in to understand the distillation process with them a little bit more. But just go for it. Get that education. I was working while I earned a lot of this educational opportunities. So don't feel like you need to quit your job and just 100% go into whiskey. It's hard. So definitely balance, but I would say this is a dream worth pursuing, and we need your voice, we need your palates, and there's always opportunities. So
I would ask you to name your favorite spirit, but I'm not going to do that.
Whiskey.
Noted. Well, thank you so much for joining me. I'm so glad we had this conversation.
It's my pleasure. Thank you very, very much.